Hey guys, Dave and Len here. Welcome to Wargame Chat. Today we're going to talk about some of the hobby shops and some of the game shops we like to go to. These are the places where we got a lot of our miniatures and board games and hobby supplies from. Why don't you start with the first one?
Well, I have to talk about the first place I bought a war game from. Stanton Hobby Shop was an institution in Chicago on Milwaukee Avenue. They were basically a hobby shop. And you go in, you had all these airplanes hanging from the ceiling, and they had those famous magazines about remote control airplanes.
Yeah, they sold RC airplanes, cars and boats there too, and model rockets and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and they had first place I saw Avalon Hill games, bought those, and also first place I saw. Then they got. I remember this is after I graduated from high school. They started selling strategy and tactics games. The ones with the long white box with the red label on it.
Interesting.
They're like generic boxes with only difference was the name on the name of the battle.
You sure it was it Mark's Strategy and Tactics or was it Mark's SPI?
Can't remember. I think. So, but. That was the beginning.
Yeah, first war game store I went to was Sudler's Wagon. Might have been on Central Avenue. They sold like D&D stuff there and miniatures. Most of the miniatures they had were TSR miniatures, but they also had some historical stuff. I think that's where my dad bought his first miniatures from.
Yeah, because Sudler's Wagon is also famous for. I remember I was looking through some of my war game collection, and I'm going, I got that Sudler's, I got that. Yeah, I bought a whole lot of board games there.
Mm-hmm.
At a certain point, the owner, I think if I remember correctly, moved to Florida to sell insurance or work in the insurance business.
Gotcha.
So it's like the bane of the war game hobby. You find better paying jobs.
Yeah.
He had 2 sons, so he had to think about his children.
So next one you got on the list.
Games Plus.
Oh yeah, Games Plus. They've been around they're in Mount Prospect. Maybe I don't know how many years. I would guess like 40 years. They have miniatures. They have a huge board game selection. Several hundred war games, maybe 400 war games. It looks like. And what else? They got role-playing games, card games, everything. And they got a real big. Half the store is gaming tables, so you can play games and stuff. It's a good-sized store. Overall, it's the best in the Midwest, I would say, as far as game shops would be. Yeah. Games Plus.
They got so many miniatures, more games than I can shake a leg at, and they have knowledgeable sales staff that can help you.
That's true. Yeah.
Yes. If you're confused over what paint for your camouflaged aircraft, they can answer those questions.
Yeah. Yeah, all those guys who work there are gamers, so they know the hobby inside out.
Next one is the Emperor's Headquarters.
Oh, that was a good one.
This place is legendary. It looks like one of those buildings you'd see in like New Orleans, like a French, French style. I'm not sure what the proper term is. And it was built by Todd Fisher, a noted Napoleonic fanatic, and it's still there, even though it seems like they have problems getting tenants. And
the store's gone. The building's there, but the store's gone.
Yeah, the store's gone. He moved to
by the airport for a while.
Yeah. Problem it was given Games Plus competition. It was close to my house. Unfortunately, this is a time in my life in which I didn't have much money, so I didn't frequent the place as much.
They had the biggest historical, as far as historical miniatures, they had more than anyone. I don't know of any game shop in the United States that ever had more historical miniatures than Emperor's Headquarters did, but that's probably part of the reason why they had trouble staying in business is because there's not that many historical gamers as opposed to like fantasy or science fiction gamers, so it's hard to keep a business run when you're just doing historical stuff, but their selection was fantastic. It is a really nice place to shop.
Okay. Black Sun?
Black Sun's the one. They're no longer in business, but I miss them the most. A friend of mine Well, I became friends with them, both of the owners there after they opened up. And I used to go there several times a week, maybe 3-4 times a week to play games and stuff and to paint figures and talk to the owners and stuff. It was just like almost like I would call it almost like a club. People would go there after work and stuff. It's so much fun. It's a shame they went out of business because it's hard to stay in business when you sell games and stuff. But
wasn't the problem when the owners died?
yeah, one did die from leukemia, so that didn't help matters. And then they weren't really making a profit, so there was like no point in the other guy continuing to put in that many hours and continuing to pump money in there when they're not making a profit. So, which is unfortunate because God, I had so much fun there. I will miss that game shop for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's where me and you used to get together and start playing the games.
Yeah, we played Warriors of Attack there. A bunch of others from TSR and from Metagaming and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And trying to think. There's a few other games that we played there. So
I used to play Warhammer 40K there. There was always someone to play against. Rogue Trader, the role-playing game, and then Vampire the Masquerade, the role-playing game. What else did I play? There's a bunch of... And whatever games people would bring in, you get to play. People go there looking for players and stuff when they got a new game. So there was always something to do there. It was just great. It's a shame they're no longer in business.
Okay, I can't remember the name. There's one at the Harlem and Irving Plaza.
Gamers Paradise.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, I believe they're out of business. I remember them from when I was in high school. They carried video games and like BattleTech and role-playing games, and once in a while some miniatures.
Yeah. Well, I remember they seemed like they were devoted mostly to either puzzles and or like family games and some Euro games. But at the same time, they had enough historical games that if I was in the area, it was worth my while just to peek in. That's where I got my Universal Europus.
Oh, wow. I got that game somewhere at home.
Yeah. Must have bought it. And there was one at the Century Mall.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that one.
That was on Clark Street, and that's where I got some of my earliest. Because actually, I remember, I think I forgot what they called it, but I think this was open before Settlers Wagon. So some of my first board games were from this place. Now, this is the time in which if you wanted to buy a board game, or you had to usually go travel across half the city just to get there. And this was an example because you had to take the Irving to Clark Street, and then Settlers Wagon opened up, and so yeah, the first 2 or 3 games I bought at Century Mall because I think Belter I bought there.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, you sold that to me. I still got that.
Yeah, I think in Targo. The 7 Years War Battle. So
cool. There's one other game shop. It was actually a flower store. They sold flowers and like gardening supply, but they had a small section where they sold like strategy and tactics magazine, boxed war games and miniatures and some card games and stuff. Was it Charlie Prosek? Was that the name of the guy who owned the place? I can't remember.
Where was it at?
Somewhere pretty far west. I can't remember where exactly. It wasn't in Chicago or anything. It was probably about 20 miles west or 30 miles west. But yeah, that was an interesting place. I ended up buying a lot of stuff from him once he stopped carrying game stuff, and he just wanted to get rid of it. And he marked it all down, so I bought a bunch of strategy and tactics and miniatures and stuff. So
there was one in Oak Park that was around for about a year or so, at the same time that the Emperor's headquarters. All I remember about this one was when they went out of business, I bought a whole bunch of games from them.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So, again, like I said, I didn't have much money in those days, or time, so I couldn't devote that money and time to the hobby, so.
All right, guys. Thanks. We'll have something new for you next week on Wargame Chat. Have a good evening.